Megan placed her coffee cup down, hesitating deliberately. The cafe was quiet, the only sounds being soft murmurs of conversation and the occasional clink of ceramic against wood. She had chosen the spot for a reason. It was their place, the one they had frequented for years, a familiar battleground for what she believed would be a victorious confrontation. "Maybe we need a break," she said at last, her voice carefully measured, a sound both uncertain and resolute. She wanted it to land just right, like a challenge, like bait. Jason looked up from his coffee. His expression remained as unreadable as always. His dark eyes lingered on her for a moment before he gave a single, calm nod. That was it. No hesitation, no confusion, just quiet acceptance. Megan felt a tightness in her chest. "I just think we need some space, to figure things out." Jason exhaled softly, as though mulling it over, then shrugged. "If that's what you want." Megan blinked. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. She had envisioned something different. A reaction, a frown, him reaching for her hands, pleading for her to stay, to explain why. She had expected proof that she was still the center of his world. She had seen it before in other men, in old boyfriends who had stumbled over themselves to fix things the moment she pulled away. But Jason just leaned back, took another sip of his coffee, and looked out the window, as if this conversation was already over. Megan swallowed, shifting in her seat. "So I guess we'll see how things go?" Jason set his cup down, calm. She hated how steady he was, how completely unfazed he seemed. She grabbed her phone, pretending to check a message, anything to feel the sudden uncomfortable silence between them. Her stomach churned. This wasn't what she had prepared for. "You're not going to, I don't know, ask me to reconsider?" she asked, trying to add a touch of teasing to her voice. Jason raised an eyebrow, almost amused. "Why would I?" Her lips parted, but no immediate response came. Jason's gaze was unwavering, steady. "If you're already halfway out the door, Megan, what's the point of me trying to pull you back in?" Her breath hitched. For the first time since sitting down, since crafting this conversation in her head, she felt a shift. She wasn't in control anymore. The script she had written was unraveling before her eyes, slipping through her fingers like sand. She forced a small laugh. "Wow, that's cold." Jason didn't flinch. "No, it's honest." He glanced at his watch, then back at her. "Are we done here?" Megan's throat was dry. "Yeah," she said, though it wasn't supposed to feel this way. A week later, Megan walked into the cafe again, but this time Jason wasn't alone. And that's when it hit her. She had made a mistake. In the days following their conversation, Megan had waited. At first, she had been confident. She knew Jason. He was steady, reliable, the kind of man who didn't let go easily. It was one of the things she had admired about him, his consistency, the quiet way he showed his devotion. She had expected that devotion to carry over into this moment. She had expected late-night texts asking if she was okay, a call just to hear her voice, maybe even an unexpected knock on her door. But the silence stretched on. By the third day, her confidence began to waver. She found herself reaching for her phone more often, unlocking it absent-mindedly, scrolling through her messages with an irritated frown. Nothing. Not a single missed call, no unread texts. Jason's name remained exactly as it had been, untouched, unchanged. She tapped on their chat and stared at the last message, days earlier. Everything had felt so easy, so natural. A simple "see you later" was all he had said. But now that same phrase felt different, felt final. Megan tried to convince herself that maybe Jason just needed time. Maybe he was waiting for her to make the first move. That thought comforted her, at least for a while. But by day 5, the sinking feeling in her chest had become harder to ignore. She checked social media, something she rarely did. Jason wasn't one to post often, but she thought she might catch a glimpse of him through mutual friends. What she found, though, unsettled her even more. There was nothing about him suggesting heartbreak. His life had gone on without missing a beat. One of his friends had posted a photo from a weekend gathering, a casual hangout with just a few people playing pool and sharing drinks. Jason was there, leaning against the bar, looking completely at ease. There was no sign of the quiet devastation she had imagined. He wasn't soaking or drinking away his sorrow. He just looked fine. Megan clenched her jaw and tossed her phone onto the couch. Fine. If he wanted to act unaffected, so be it. But the silence nagged her. A quiet irritation that wouldn't go away. She had wanted space, not indifference. She had wanted him to fight for her, to remind her why she had chosen him in the first place. Instead, it felt as though she had never mattered at all. On the 6th day, she went out with friends, determined to push the feeling away. She laughed louder than usual, took more photos than necessary, posted stories on Instagram just to prove to herself, more than anyone else, that she was having a great time. But even in the middle of a crowded bar, surrounded by people, she found herself checking her phone. Nothing. By the 7th day, she couldn't take it any longer. Megan walked into their usual cafe, the same one where she had told Jason they needed a break. She had expected it to be filled with the echoes of their past conversations, a place where memories lingered. She had imagined running into him there, sitting alone, looking like a man with unfinished business, waiting for her to return and admit she had been wrong. But Jason wasn't alone. Megan froze just inside the door, her breath catching in her throat. There he was, sitting at their table, but across from him sat another woman, Sophia Bennett. Megan recognized her instantly, though she couldn't quite place her. Sophia was striking, but in a way that didn't try too hard. She wasn't overdone or flashy. Instead, she had an effortless presence, warm and comfortable. The kind of person who didn't need a demand for attention because it naturally fell on her. And Jason, he was laughing. Not just any laugh, but the kind that came easily. A laugh that wasn't forced or polite, but genuine. The same laugh Megan had once cherished, the one she thought was hers alone. Megan's hands balled into fists. This wasn't right. He was supposed to be heartbroken, struggling without her. He should have been realizing that losing her was the worst thing that could have happened to him. He was supposed to be lost, but instead, here he was moving on. For the first time since she had uttered the words, "Maybe we need a break," Megan realized she had never truly considered what would happen if Jason didn't chase her. She had never imagined that he wouldn't. But now, standing there watching him lean in as Sophia spoke, his expression open and light, Megan felt something she had never expected: regret. She was rooted to the spot, breath shallow, fingers trembling at her sides. The cafe buzzed around her, the aroma of freshly brewed coffee filling the air. But all she could focus on was the man sitting at their table, the man who just a week ago had been hers. Jason had always been steady, predictable in a way she once took for granted. She had assumed that, even in the worst-case scenario, even if she had pushed him too far, there would have been some lingering sadness in his eyes, some hesitation in his step. Anything to suggest her absence had left a void. But instead, he looked free, and that stung more than she could have ever imagined. She didn't recognize his version of him. He wasn't sitting there lost in memories, staring off into the distance or drowning in regret. He wasn't waiting for her to return and fix everything. No, he was here in this very cafe, talking easily with another woman, Sophia. The name felt familiar, but it wasn't until Megan watched them more closely that it all clicked. Sophia had always been around the edges of their lives, never intrusive or demanding attention. Just there, a friend of a friend, someone Megan had always dismissed as unimportant, harmless. Yet now, seeing her in this new light, Megan realized how wrong she had been. Sophia carried herself with quiet confidence, sitting as though she belonged in every space she entered, effortless and comfortable. She wasn't trying to impress Jason, not with exaggerated gestures or flirtatious glances. She was just there, being herself, and Jason, he was completely absorbed in her. Megan's chest tightened. Jason had never looked at her like that, not in a long time. The way he leaned forward so easily, the way he smiled so genuinely at something Sophia said. It was natural, unforced. There was no tension, no underlying need to prove anything. It was just two people enjoying each other's company, unaffected by the past. For the first time, Megan felt something she had expected: panic. Her stomach twisted, and she struggled to steady her breathing. But the more she watched, the worse it became. She had been so sure of herself when she suggested the break, confident that Jason would be waiting for her. She had imagined him spending his nights thinking of her, missing her, wondering how to win her back. But instead, he had walked away without a second thought. And now it was too late. Megan's fingers twitched toward her phone before she even realized it. She thought about texting him something casual, just to remind him that she was still around, still an option. But then Jason laughed again, his eyes meeting Sophia in a way that made Megan feel invisible. For the first time, she understood. She wasn't an option anymore. She had been replaced. Her pulse raced, and she quickly turned away from the sight of them, her fingers tightening around the strap of her purse, her breath quickening. She had to leave. She needed space, air, anything to drown out the realization crashing down on her. She almost stumbled out of the cafe, the sharp click of her heels against the pavement echoing in the quiet street. The cool breeze of the afternoon should have felt refreshing, but instead, it only made the heat in her face burn even more. She could still see them in her mind. Jason relaxed, leaning in slightly, a small smirk on his lips as he listened to Sophia speak. That was supposed to be her moment, her seat. Without thinking, Megan pulled out her phone, her thumb hovering over Jason's name. A simple message, something neutral, just to remind him she was still here. "Hey, hope you're doing well." She typed it out, staring at the words, but they didn't feel right. What was she hoping for? Did she really think Jason would read her message and suddenly realize he missed her? That he would drop everything, apologize, and come running back? The thought seemed ridiculous. Jason didn't chase. He never had. That was part of what had drawn her to him in the first place. His quiet confidence, the way he never let anyone manipulate him. And yet, she had foolishly believed she could be the exception, that she could make him chase her by pulling away. But Jason had called her bluff. Her grip on the phone tightened, and before she could stop herself, she deleted the message. Instead, she opened Instagram. If Jason wasn't going to come to her, maybe she could make him remember what he was missing. She scrolled through her photos, selecting the best one. A shot from last weekend, taken at a rooftop bar. The city lights glowed behind her, and she looked stunning, confident, effortlessly happy. She added a caption that felt light and carefree. "Love a good night out." The moment she posted it, a rush of satisfaction washed over her. He would see it. He would remember. Maybe he'd feel something, regret, longing, or even jealousy. But as quickly as the thought came, it faded. Jason wasn't the type to react to things like this. He wouldn't analyze or post or wonder what it meant or spend his night debating whether or not to reach out. He had already made his choice. He had moved on. Megan inhaled deeply, forcing herself to keep walking. For the first time in a long time, she felt completely powerless, and that terrified her. That night, Megan lay in bed, staring at her phone. The dim glow of the screen lit up her face as her post gathered its usual likes and comments. Friends hyping her up, acquaintances dropping fire emojis, even a few messages from guys she barely knew. But none of them were from him. Jason hadn't liked the post, hadn't seen her story, hadn't even reached out. The realization settled deep in her stomach, a hollow ache spreading through her chest. She had been so sure that he would notice. Even if he didn't say anything, she thought he would at least stop for a moment, take a sigh of her, and remember what he had lost. But no, Jason wasn't looking back. He had already turned the page. A bitterness she didn't recognize twisted inside her. Why wasn't he struggling the way she was? Why wasn't he feeling the way their history clung to her like a ghost she couldn't shake? She had been prepared for a game of longing, for a slow burn of regret that would eventually bring them back together. But Jason had rewritten the script entirely. Her phone vibrated, snapping her out of her thoughts. A text. For a second, her heart leapt, but it wasn't from Jason. "Hey stranger, been a while. Drink soon." It was from Tyler, an old flame, someone she had kept around for moments just like this. Someone who was always there to remind her that she was desired, that she could have anyone she wanted. She almost replied, almost let herself fall back into the comfort of old habits, knowing she still had control over someone. But as she stared at the message, her fingers hovering over the keyboard, something inside her shifted. This wasn't what she wanted. It wasn't about Tyler. It wasn't about validation. It was about Jason, the way he had walked away without a second thought, how he had refused to give her the reaction she had expected. That, more than anything, was what hurt the most. With a slow exhale, Megan locked her phone and set it face down on the nightstand. Minutes passed, maybe an hour. Then impulsively, she picked it up again. She opened her old messages, scrolling back through months of easy conversations, inside jokes, and moments that had once felt unshakable. Her chest tightened. Finally, she typed the word she had been resisting. "I think we made a mistake." She hesitated only for a second before hitting send. The message was delivered instantly, and then nothing. No typing bubble. No immediate response. Just silence. Megan stared at the screen, waiting. Minutes passed, then an hour. Finally, Jason's reply came. She felt a flicker of hope until she opened it. Message deleted. Jason had seen her words and erased them without another thought. Megan turned off her phone and sank into the choice of her own regret.